This week's Martha's Collection feature is actually one of my favorites from the collection. I know it doesn't look like much here, but wait till you see it at the end. I definitely learned a lot of things while researching this, one thing being that ball fringe, the earliest known use of the word ball fringe goes back to the 1810s. I had no idea that ball fringe went back that far. It has crocheted buttons, two of them are missing, and I will address that later. And it has a wool lining. There is no boning in this, and I learned is a type of jacket that is called a paletote. It does not have a waist seam in the front and very rarely in the back. It is buttoned and has a simple coat sleeve, and I think that fits this description. Here's some other examples. I notice, interestingly, that the buttons are on the right side, not on the left side. And here's some other examples from that era that show that as well. And so I went down some rabbit holes into that, and there may be a military connection with that. And I do feel this jacket has a military influence with those strips of bias bands with the ball fringe on the ends. So to get it presentable, I wanted to kind of get the deep wrinkles out of it. And I know you aren't supposed to steam silk taffeta because of puckering. I did not think that would be an issue with this, but sadly it was. So I did also go over it with an iron using a press cloth for the front or trying to do it on the back. So to address the two missing buttons, again, they are crocheted, which I don't know how to crochet, but if somebody did, they could replicate those. And it was actually kind of a challenge to find the right kind of size and shape. But what I ended up finding were some old woven leather buttons. And to cover them, I had a piece of rayon net and a piece of silk, and I did several attempts of several combinations of dye. And I finally came up with one that was pretty darn close. So layering the two fabrics together, I stitched them together. And I used a spool of thread as kind of my pattern. So I just kind of went around in the circle, and then I went in about another 1/8 of an inch in from that stitching, and then trimmed around the outside edge just to kind of get as much of the fabric off as possible. And then I did a hand basting stitch around the edge and placed the button in the inside and then pulled it around. So this button has a shank, obviously. And so that shank is what allowed me to attach it to the jacket. I just did just a few stitches. I didn't want to put any more holes in the jacket that were there originally. So here you can see a close-up of the construction of this. And here are those crocheted buttons, which I really would love to learn how to make those someday. And look at, I'm always so amazed at the incredible hand stitching when these old garments have the handmade buttonholes. This is such a favorite detail. Every one of these little, I'm just calling them bands, I guess, has bias strips that are hand stitched together, and then each one has a hand stitched little silk ball fringe ball on the end. And putting it in the 1860s, it has that piped seam for the sleeve. And then the back of the jacket has these curved seams, again, in that era. And it has a hand overcast stitches for the seams. There's a close-up of that there. And again, there's no boning on this. And you can see here the inside with that wool lining. And there's one hook at the neck, just one simple hook. So here it is after it's been pressed and on a form to show it, and it does have a crinoline underneath it because that's how it would have been at the time. And yes, it has quite a bit of staining, which I'm not going to attempt to remove because it may not be able to handle any type of cleaning. But look at the beautiful simplicity, but just with the details on there. And you can definitely see, I feel it has a military influence, meaning that this is probably influenced by the Civil War that was just happening at that time or had just happened at that time. I just think this is an amazing survivor despite its conditions and just an absolute pleasure to have had it in my possession for just a short while before it goes on to its next home. And I learned so much from this wonderful garment 160 years later.